In a backyard in the East End of Toronto, there is a small metal box painted blue and white. It is about 6 feet long, 48 square feet of floor, which is smaller than most people's bathroom. Inside there is a bed, storage tucked underneath it, an electric heater on the wall, and a door that locks from the inside. And directly above the pillow, there is a skylight, so that the woman who lives there can lie down at night and see the sky instead of a ceiling. Her name is Jewel. Before last December, she had spent years sleeping on the streets of Toronto and cycling through the city's shelter system. Years. The man who built that box is not a politician or an architect or the head of a charity with a marble lobby. He is a construction worker named Ryan Donais who got tired of walking past tents in the snow. This is the story of what 48 square feet can actually do for a person. It involves 5 blue boxes in a downtown park, a letter from the City of Toronto's lawyers, a man dying of cancer who finally got his own front door, and a lot in Scarborough that now carries his name. And by the end of it, you might wonder why every city isn't already doing this. Start with what Toronto actually looks like now, because the tents are not hidden. They are in the parks, under the overpasses, along the ravines. Nylon domes covered in tarps, weighed down with whatever people can find, shopping carts parked beside them, sleeping bags gone stiff with frost by morning. Toronto winters are not gentle. When the wind comes off Lake Ontario in January, a tent is barely a suggestion of shelter. It keeps the snow off your face. That is roughly all it does. Now, the city does have a shelter system, and it is a large one. It is also, on almost any given night, completely full. City data showed an average of 148 people a night being turned away in September because there was simply no bed. In October, that number climbed to 154. Those are not people who refused help. Those are people who picked up a phone, asked for a bed, and were told there wasn't one. Ryan Donais had been watching this happen on his own street for years, and at some point he stopped waiting for somebody else to deal with it, went into his workshop and started building. He registered a not-for-profit and then a registered charity, and he gave it the plainest possible name: Tiny, Tiny Homes. Now, this is the part where you would expect a man in his position to start talking about how he was going to solve homelessness. He said the opposite, and he has repeated it in interview after interview. This is not a solution for housing. Housing is the answer. He has said out loud that it is terrible that we are letting people sleep outside, and that he wishes he did not have to build these things at all. He is building them anyway, because January does not wait for a housing policy. And what he was building was a great deal more considered than the words tiny shelter suggest. So look at what was actually inside one of the first units. Each one had a bed, a table, a sink with running water, fed from a tank by a battery-powered pump, heat, which in those early models ran on diesel, electricity from solar panels mounted on the roof, a smoke detector, a carbon monoxide alarm, and a fire extinguisher fixed to the wall, because Donais knew exactly what the first objection was going to be. And a door, a real door, with a lock on it. If you have never been without a home, that last detail sounds like the least interesting thing on the list. Ask anyone who has slept rough, and it is the first thing they mention. Not the bed, not the heat, the lock. Because sleeping outside means sleeping with one ear open. It means your shoes, your documents, your medication, your photographs of your children. All of it exists only as long as nobody decides to take it while you are asleep. People have turned down shelter beds and stayed in tents for exactly this reason, which sounds irrational right up until you understand they were protecting the last few objects that proved who they were. A locked door gives you back the ability to sleep, and you cannot begin to fix anything else in your life until you can sleep. In October, the first unit went into St. James Park, near Church Street and Adelaide Street East, in the middle of downtown Toronto. Then a second. Eventually, there were 5 of them, lined up in the corner of the green space, small and blue and unmistakable. They were never meant to be permanent. They were a bridge, a place to be while you waited for the thing you were actually waiting for, which for most of the residents was subsidized housing. And the first man to move into one is the reason this story matters at all. His name was Brent Blake. Blake had been in and out of homelessness for years, and volunteers in the city already knew him well. One of them had first met him back in 2016 at Haven, Toronto, a drop-in center downtown that serves vulnerable and homeless men aged 50 and over. That detail matters more than it might seem. The picture most people carry of homelessness is a young man with a cardboard sign. A very large share of the people sleeping outside in Canadian cities are men in their 50s, their 60s, and their 70s. Men who worked their entire lives, lost a job, lost a marriage, lost a lease, and then found out exactly how fast the floor gives way. And Blake was not only homeless, he was fighting cancer at the same time, waiting for subsidized housing while carrying a diagnosis in his throat. Sit with what that combination actually means. Chemotherapy appointments while living in a park, trying to rest after treatment in a nylon tent, trying to keep medication at a stable temperature when the temperature outside is -15. He moved into one of the blue shelters and described what it gave him in the simplest language available. Peace of mind. He said you are not lying awake wondering where you are going to go. He had been living in it about 3 weeks when the envelope arrived. And everybody watching this story already had a bad feeling about how it was going to end, because Toronto had done this before. Years earlier, during the pandemic, a carpenter named Khalil Seavright started building insulated wooden shelters for people living outside in Toronto. More than 100 of them ended up in parks across the city. It became a national story, and it ended in court. The city sought and obtained an injunction, and Seavright was ordered to stop building and to remove the structures. That episode left a mark on the city's reputation that never fully healed. Whatever the legal merits were, the public memory of it reduced down to a single sentence. The city took a man to court for building shelters for homeless people in the middle of a pandemic. So when city lawyers sent Ryan Donias a cease and desist letter in early February, everyone involved already knew how this movie was supposed to end. The language was formal and cold in the way legal letters always are. The shelters were unlawfully occupying city property. They violated the municipal code. They interfered with the city's rights of ownership. He was to remove them. A city spokesperson clarified the position afterward. While Toronto might consider micro-shelters as part of some future initiative, they were not currently permitted on any city-owned property, anywhere, and the city was not entirely wrong to be nervous. The local councillor and some neighbors had raised safety concerns about people staying in the park. There are real reasons a municipality does not want unregulated structures with heaters inside appearing on public land. If one of those units had caught fire with somebody asleep inside it, the same people demanding the city leave them alone would have been demanding to know why the city ever allowed it. The city had a legitimate concern. It simply did not have anywhere for those 5 people to go. Brent Blake, sitting inside his shelter in the park, put the counter-argument better than any advocate could. He said he thought the city was wrong to order tiny homes to stop, when the city itself could not find places to live for everyone who needed housing. Why not let organizations start doing it, he asked, because the city can't do it. And then Donias did the thing that surprised everybody who was watching. He did not go to war. He publicly said that his intention was not to fight with the city of Toronto. He said that when the time came, they would comply with lawful orders. What he asked for instead was help finding a legal site to move the units to. Everybody involved, he said, was completely on board with moving somewhere more permanent. That single decision is probably the reason this story ended the way it did. Because Toronto's mayor, Olivia Chow, stepped in. Her office reached out to Donias directly. A spokesperson said the mayor's office was working toward a solution that got people safely indoors and that no temporary housing would be removed in the near future. The bulldozer stopped. And what happened over the following months is the part almost nobody predicted. Before we get there, one thing worth saying for anyone watching this who has somebody in their life who is close to the edge. If you are trying to help a family member, a friend, or a veteran work out which door to knock on first, I put together a free resource called the veteran's blueprint. It walks through the specific programs, the paperwork, and the order to do things in, including the steps that get help fastest and the small mistakes that quietly disqualify people. It works just as well if you are the one who needs it. The link is in the description below. Now, back to St. James Park. The shelters did come out of that park, all 5 of them, one at a time. But look closely at how each one left. In early April, a tow truck arrived to take a unit away. It was the second one removed, and it was removed because the man living inside it, Brent Blake, had just moved into an apartment of his own with funding from the city. Denai stood in the park watching the little blue box get loaded onto the truck and called it a super exciting day. That became the pattern. The city's position was that the remaining structures would be removed as the people inside them successfully moved indoors. And that is exactly what happened. One by one, each resident was connected to permanent housing, and when they walked out, the shelter they had been living in was towed away. Nobody was dragged out. Nobody was arrested. Everybody went indoors. You can argue about why the city moved so quickly for those 5 people. But 5 people who had been sleeping in tents through a Toronto winter all ended up holding keys to their own apartments faster than they otherwise would have, because 5 small blue boxes sat in a public park where everyone with power had to walk past them on the way to work. Denai kept his word too. He said he was not going to install any more units in city parks, and he worked with the city on housing for the last 3 residents. The units themselves did not go to a scrapyard. They were relocated to a property called Lazarus House, transitional housing run by a charitable foundation, where they could sit legally on private land. And out of that whole year, he did not walk away discouraged. He went back to the workshop and refined the design. Which brings us to the box in the backyard, and to the model this entire story is named after. 48 square feet, roughly 6 feet long, sitting on a single axle trailer so it can be towed and placed almost anywhere in an afternoon. The outside is clad in insulated metal panels, painted blue and white, with a small deck at the front that folds flat for transport. That folding deck sounds like a decorative flourish. It isn't. It gives the unit a threshold, a front step, a place where outside becomes inside. It makes arriving somewhere feel like arriving. Inside, there is a bed and a daybed, with storage tucked underneath, and a long storage unit running the length of the wall. An electric heater handles the winter. An optional window-mounted air conditioner handles the summer, because a metal box in a Toronto July is its own kind of danger. And overhead, the skylight. In a space that small, a skylight is not a luxury item. It is the difference between a room and a container. It is the thing that stops the space feeling like a coffin. Somebody sat down and thought carefully about what it does to a human mind to lie down in a box with no sky in it. There is no kitchen and no bathroom, and that is deliberate rather than a shortcoming. These units are designed to sit in a cluster beside shared facilities, communal kitchens, bathrooms, showers, and support workers on site. Strip the unit down to pure shelter and you can build it fast, move it easily, and get more of them out before the cold arrives. There is a larger 96 square foot version with a desk and a small kitchenette for situations that need it. 2 of the 48 square foot units were delivered to a transitional housing development in Toronto called the Seeds of Hope Farm Project. Newer models went into the backyard at Lazarus House in Leslieville, on private land, entirely legally, with the blessing of the foundation that runs the property. And now, consider the scale of what one man with a trailer and a drill is up against. City data recently showed 9,600 people counted as actively homeless in Toronto over a 3-month period, nearly 9,000 using the shelter system on a single night, hundreds of encampments across city property, and across the province of Ontario. One report found that close to 85,000 people experienced homelessness in a single year, an increase of 8% in 12 months. The general manager of Toronto's shelter services said something that should stay with you. He said, "Homelessness doesn't discriminate. Anyone could experience it with one missed paycheck or one other challenge in their life. That is not a slogan, Look at who was actually living in these units. A man in his later years with cancer, known to a drop-in center for men over 50. A woman who had cycled through the shelter system for years. These are not the characters in the story people tell themselves about homelessness. These are somebody's father and somebody's mother. Meanwhile, the city of Toronto has been trying to do the very same thing Donias did. Officially, the city has been considering micro-shelters as emergency housing. It has been looking for land to put them on. That search has now gone on for 2 years, and it has not produced a single site. A call for proposals went out in December for a 2-year micro-shelter pilot. Applications closed in February. A decision was supposed to come within 1 to 3 months. Donice applied. Months later, he still had not heard anything. So he did what he did the first time. He stopped waiting. His organization found its own parcel of land out in Scarborough and started converting it into a 10-unit micro-shelter community, funded by donations and built partly by volunteers. And they gave it a name. They named it after Brent Blake, because Blake got his apartment. He got his own front door, his own address, his own set of keys after years of bouncing between the street and the shelter system. He held on to it for a few months. In June, the cancer took him. He was one of the first 5 people ever to sleep in a tiny, tiny home. And now there is a village going up in Scarborough with his name on it, built by volunteers who could not stand to wait any longer, for people who are exactly where he was. So what do you take from all of this? Not that 48 square feet is enough. Donice would be the first person to tell you it isn't, and he says it more forcefully than his critics do. A metal box on a trailer is not a home, and a country that needs them has already failed at something further upstream. But there is a gap between the night somebody has nowhere to sleep and the day a housing policy finally reaches them. That gap can run for years, and people freeze to death in gaps. What Ryan Donice proved is that the gap is fillable right now by ordinary people, using materials you can buy at a builder's yard, on land that already exists, without waiting for a committee to approve a feasibility study for a pilot program. 5 shelters in a downtown park, and 5 people went indoors permanently. A lot in Scarborough with a dead man's name on it, going up brick by brick because a group of volunteers refused to keep waiting. And a backyard in Leslieville, where a woman who slept rough for years now lies down at night in 48 square feet, behind a door that locks, with a skylight above her bed and the whole sky on the other side of it. If this story hit you the way it hit me, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this one every week, the ones about people who quietly refuse to look away.